The following program is furnished by The Truth About Your Future, LLC. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station. This information is education and not financial advice. Consult a financial advisor before investing.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman is brought to you by Bitwise, the world's largest crypto index fund manager, and by Global X ETFs, dedicated to providing investors with unexplored and intelligent solutions, and by Invesco QQQ, a fund that allows you to access the innovators of the NASDAQ 100, and by Edelman Financial Engines. Rick Edelman is a board member, consultant, shareholder, and client of EFE, but EFE is unaffiliated and has no say over the content of The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.
This is where technology, innovation, and personal finance come together.
This is The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.
And now your host, Rick Edelman.
And a happy weekend to you. This is The Truth About Your Future, and just some of what we're going to be covering for you today. Another bad idea from the SEC, single stock ETFs, new scams you need to be aware of. And what kind of life insurance do you need? Plus, our health and wellness segment with my wife, Jean Edelman. You probably are a big fan of mutual funds and exchange-traded funds. In fact, I'm willing to bet you're an even bigger fan of ETFs than you are of mutual funds. And what's not to love? We like these investments because they offer diversification. We know that when you diversify, you are taking less risk, because if you own a basket of 1,000 stocks, so what if one of them goes broke, right? You got 999 others to protect you. So diversification is a wonderful way, the most important way that investors reduce their investment risk. And this is what mutual funds and ETFs are famous for. But now, one fund company has just launched a bunch of ETFs that each hold one stock. This is crazy. If you think about it, owning an ETF that has one stock, well, you might as well just buy the one stock. You're taking the same level of risk. These ETFs hold PayPal or Nike or Pfizer or Nvidia or Tesla. They're meant to be short-term trading vehicles. This doesn't make any sense for investors who believe in diversification and who believe in long-term investment holding. The SEC has now approved these single stock ETFs. They've also approved single bond ETFs. Well, the SEC has said okay to this, but what does Lori Schock think? She's SEC's Director of the Office of Investor Education and Advocacy. She says that these new single stock, single bond ETFs are even riskier than leveraged ETFs and inverse ETFs. Those are ETFs that borrow money or make bets that the stock market's going to fall. She said, quote, "Investors holding these funds will experience even greater volatility and risk than investors who hold the underlying stock itself." You see, the reason is, if you own a given stock, one single stock, and it goes down in value, well, you can kind of hold on to it and hope it goes up the day after that. And it'll do that. The stock will fluctuate going up and down. But these single stock ETFs reset their values every day, meaning if you hold on to them for more than one day, you could end up with losses that are unrecoverable. Lori said, quote, "Investors should be aware that if they were to hold these funds for longer than a day, the performance of the funds may differ significantly from the levered or inverse performance of the underlying stock during the same period." This is really crazy. It's gotten so questionable that William Galvin, who is the chief securities regulator in Massachusetts, has announced an investigation into any brokerage firm that sells these things. He says that single stock ETFs are no different from gambling in a casino. He said, quote, "Under no circumstances should an investor use these products as a long-term investment." Even SEC Commissioner Caroline Crenshaw, who was on my show a couple of months ago, said, quote, "Because of their risks, it would be challenging for any investment professional to recommend them while honoring their fiduciary obligations." Now think about this for a second. This is what drives me crazy. The SEC has just said, okay, to an ETF company. Go ahead, launch a single stock ETF. Go ahead, launch a single bond ETF. Even though Some members of the commission think this is horrifically risky and cannot be recommended by an advisor who's trying to serve as a fiduciary, meaning serving your best interests. Those two are mutually exclusive. You can't serve your best interests and simultaneously tell someone to buy this. And the SEC's own director of investor advocacy says this is ridiculously risky. The SEC said yes anyway to allowing the product onto the market. And then a securities regulator in Massachusetts says any advisor who does use it is going to come under our microscope. This drives me crazy. On the one hand, the government says, sure, we'll allow this product on the market, while simultaneously saying anybody who recommends it is going to get in trouble. This is what makes it very frustrating for financial advisors. If the product is allowed on the market, then you ought to be able to use it. And if it isn't something that ought to be allowed to be used, why are you allowing it on the market? The SEC says that they are all focused about consumer protection, but I don't see how the approval of single stock ETFs is protecting consumers at all. I'm Rick Edelman. You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. Well, there's a new survey of 15,000 retirees, people ages 60 and above. The question, what is your single biggest challenge in retirement? That's kind of interesting. I would have thought that in retirement, your challenges are over, right? Aren't challenges associated with work and career and all that kind of success effort? Well, apparently, people in retirement face challenges too. The most common answers people provided answering that question, what's your single biggest challenge in retirement? Quote, I miss doing the work that I love. Or, I don't think retiring is for me. I want to go back. Or, I'm not sure what to do with my time. I feel lost. The Journal of Applied Gerontology did a study and determined that what you need is a strong purpose in life. It leads to a slower progression of chronic illness. So I've got a few questions for you. Are you doing in retirement an activity that you love? Are you good at it? Does the world need what you're offering? And can you get paid for it? As you approach retirement, as you are in retirement, these are the 4 questions you've got to keep in mind. Are you doing an activity that you love? Are you good at it? Does the world need what you offer? And can you get paid, even a little, for doing it? That will help create the sense of purpose you need to remain vital and healthy and happy in retirement.
Want to invest in digital assets but find it all a bit complicated? There's actually a very easy way that you can invest in this new asset class. Simply choose the Bitwise 10 Crypto Index Fund, symbol BITW. It's the first and still the biggest crypto index fund. It owns the 10 largest digital assets and rebalances monthly, so you don't have to decide what to buy or when to rebalance. Bitwise does it all for you. At Bitwise, we want digital assets to be available to everyone, and that's why we work closely with individual investors like you, as well as financial advisors and institutions. At Bitwise, crypto is all we do. If you believe digital assets should be part of a diversified portfolio, take a look at the Bitwise Crypto 10 Index Fund, symbol BITW, available everywhere you get your investments. There are major risks to consider, including the loss of your entire investment. Before investing in crypto funds, visit bitwiseinvestments.com to learn about the risks with these investments.
What do all the greatest innovations have in common? Agents of innovation. Ordinary people who shape the future by putting their money behind the right ideas. Invesco QQQ is a fund that allows you access to innovators of the NASDAQ 100. So you don't have to be an inventor to help create what's next to come. Be an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ. Learn more at Invesco.com/QQQ. There are risks when investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETFs risks are similar to those of stocks. Investments in the tech sector are subject to greater risk and more volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ. You can't invest directly into an index. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in the prospectus at Invesco.com. Invesco Distributors, Inc.
Recession, inflation, rising interest rates. Wondering what today's economic challenges mean for you? Join Edelman Financial Engines on Tuesday, September 20th at 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern for our brand new virtual event, The Economic Storm of 2022 and Your Wealth, a roundtable discussion hosted by best-selling author Gene Shatsky and featuring wealth planners from Edelman Financial Engines. You can register now at planefe.com. You'll get timely insights into today's market situation and learn steps to consider now. Are you making the right financial moves? What could you be doing differently? Don't miss this important virtual event. Join Edelman Financial Engines for The Economic Storm of 2022 and Your Wealth, hosted by Gene Shatsky on Tuesday, September 20th at 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern. There's no cost to attend and no obligation. Register now at planefe.com. That's planefe.com. Edelman Financial Engines, from here forward.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. You know, there isn't a financial advisor in the country who hasn't seen a client's family devastated because the client died without having sufficient life insurance. You know, it isn't something that people like to talk about other than sarcastically, the world of insurance, but there is no question, it is undeniable, the incredibly important role that life insurance plays in a comprehensive financial plan. And to help us have this conversation, I'm happy to bring onto the program my good friend Todd Hillstead. He's Executive Director of Financial Planning at Edelman Financial Engines. Todd's got a degree from Brigham Young University and an MBA from the University of Utah, and he's been with EFE since 2011, over a decade. Todd, great to see you again, my friend.
Great to be with you too. Thanks, Rick.
So let's talk about life insurance. It isn't one of the most fun subjects to have a discussion with a client, is it?
No, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on these days, and there's a lot of stuff that we can spend our time worrying about. I always joke that there's always going to be an apocalypse du jour, and that can often take a lot of our time. However, a lot of the building blocks of creating wealth is also protecting those that you love. And it often requires, sometimes a quiet conversation about life insurance.
So let's start there. Who needs it?
Well, think about anybody that would be financially impacted if something happened to you. So if there are children that rely on your income, spouses, partners, anyone that would be negatively financially impacted should you pass away early, that's who needs life insurance. But often, you know, we think about our families. However, we often forget a lot of us run businesses and we have business partners. The other thing that we should be thinking is if I've got a key employee or a key person that's running my business, and if I was to lose them untimely, can my business still run? So we should also make sure that we are looking at the key people that we house under the roof of our business.
So it's really a short answer that you've given that is terrific. That is there a financial loss? Is there an economic disruption that occurs as a result of somebody dying? And if the answer is yes, then you need insurance. It's really that simple. There are two different kinds of insurance policies out there, however, Todd, and this is where some of the complexity and confusion sets in for consumers. Term life versus whole life. Talk about the difference.
Well, I always like to look at term life, which is what the vast majority of people will own. It covers you for a set amount of time. For example, if you have children that are going to be under your roof, living with you for a certain period of time, and should something happen to you, I need to make sure that they go through college, that they're still able to live in the home should something happen to them. But at some point, I'm hoping, you know, the old joke was out the door by 24. that they actually are on their own and doing okay, and the risk that I need to cover might end. That's a great example of what term insurance may be. I often compare it to renting a home. I'm paying in, I'm getting rent, I got a roof over my home, but when that lease ends, I no longer live there and I have to find a new place to live. Same thing with term life insurance. Once that term period is ended, you pretty much, that life insurance is no longer around. There's a few exceptions to that, but that's kind of how you need to look at it. And it typically runs anywhere between 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 years.
And as a contrast is whole life.
That's exactly it. It's your entire life. So you know that there's something going on that you need to have insurance for to take care of someone till the day that you die. And there's a few examples that come to mind when we talk about that. One is you have a child or a member of your family that isn't going to be out the door by 24. You have a financial obligation and you need to take care of them for your entire lifetime. I think of special needs children. I think of members of our family that are struggling, and we just need to make sure that they will be covered. There are also a few different areas to, again, consider. We have a business that we need to cover someone longer than potentially 20 years, a key person in our business. And in a few extreme circumstances, for those that have accumulated a vast amount of wealth, life insurance can be used as an efficient means to cover some future tax liability. And that's often what this permanent type of insurance is used for.
So it's pretty easy to figure out whether you need term insurance, or what you call temporary insurance, as opposed to permanent insurance or whole life insurance. That's pretty simple and easy to understand. I think a more challenging question that people get into is, well, once we know what kind of policy, how much insurance do I need to buy?
And that's the $1 million question. We often don't like to consider, well, one, what's going to happen when I pass away? Or number two, what happens to my family financially? I've heard in just about 23 years of doing this, every excuse that you can imagine, to where I won't be around. I don't want to buy any life insurance because my wife's going to remarry and I don't want to give her new husband the money, and to everything that you can imagine. The truth of the matter is, if you have a financial responsibility with those that are dependent upon you, I call it adulting. It is your job to make sure that those people are cared for. And if it goes to the next spouse, so be it. You did your job. And the key thing to look at, there's an old adage, when you look at the amount of insurance that you need, let's take, for example, $1 million, drop the zero, divide by 2. That'll tell you essentially how much money, ballpark, that insurance will spin off. So if you got $1 million policy, drop the zero, divide by 2, it's going to spin you off about $50,000 per year. If you look at that, and as you're listening to this, you may say, man, I may not have enough. My spouse or kids or whoever depends on me financially may not have enough money coming in from that life insurance. This is a great time to get a second opinion on your life insurance. One of the things that we often see, however, is that these opinions come from a commission-based salesperson. And often when I'm doing this, someone will come into our office and they will have a permanent type of insurance, but they had a term type of need. They had a need where they go, I don't need this really expensive insurance that's going to last me a long time, or even 40, 50, 60 years. It was only a 10 or a 15-year need, but it was very, very expensive. And that's where you kind of want to get into the devil of the details. Is the person that is recommending the insurance a commission-based salesperson, where they're trying to sell you a policy and they're actually making a commission off of that policy? Or is it someone that is coming from a fiduciary perspective, where all they have to gain is to make sure that you are appropriately covered? And you want to be very careful that you are looking and working with someone who is a fiduciary, who has your best interest at heart, and they can recommend the appropriate and the right type of insurance that you'll need for either a term type of an existence, 10, 20, 30 years, or if you fall into one of those areas where it's a permanent type need. And there are scenarios where it is correct to add a whole life or a different type of permanent insurance. Just make sure that it's your best interests that are at heart, not the insurance agents.
So you mentioned something really important, really very common, where people will say, I have one of those whole life policies. I bought it 20 or 30 years ago, but I really don't need it. I've outgrown it. I've now got a lot of assets. We're retired with pensions and Social Security. We're doing fine. And my spouse, if I were to die, doesn't really need that death benefit, but I'm continuing to pay for that policy. What do you tell people who have an old policy they no longer need? What should they do with it?
Well, the first thing is do not just call the insurance company and cancel the policy. Continue to pay your premiums. Get a second opinion on that policy before you do anything. A quick example of what's happened. A lot of these type of insurance policies became into existence 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago when interest rates were very, very high. What this caused is that the amount of cost, the premium that you had to pay was much lower because the cash value inside of this policy was going to earn 11, 12, 13%. We all know what's happened with interest rates. They came down and now they've shot back up, but the interest rate inside of these policies is still growing at a very low rate. What we're finding is that you have been a good citizen. You have paid your premium diligently 20, 30, sometimes 40 years, and you're all of a sudden getting a notice from the insurance company. Thanks, you've been you paid very well. Your insurance policy is going to lapse. Before you just go and say, well, gosh, that's not necessarily what I planned out, get a second opinion. There are many things that can be done. You can take that cash value and parlay it into many different solutions. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to lose the money. And that review should be done by someone that knows what they're doing, but at the same time is a fiduciary, that is a fee-based financial advisor that will put your best interest at heart. In some cases, it is right to let the policy lapse. In some other situations, you can take that policy, lower the death benefit. You may say, my family doesn't necessarily need this money anymore, but I can still keep a little bit of this insurance, not lose all the money that I've put in, and we use it for philanthropy. We'll often put a charity of your choice as the beneficiary, as opposed to just losing all of that hard work. So be careful when you get those notices. It is often very frightening. It's very frustrating. And I'm seeing them come quite common as these policies that were written years ago are now coming due. And we're finding that they didn't necessarily honor the original obligation that they were intended to do 20, 30, 40 years ago.
There are two other issues that pertain to the subject of life insurance. We're talking with Todd Hillstead, the Executive Director of Financial Planning at Edelman Financial Engines. One of them is the ownership of the policy. And that seems like a silly question because at first blush, you would say to yourself, well, if I'm going to buy a policy to benefit my spouse and children, I should own the policy, shouldn't I? Well, should they, Todd?
Sometimes. Think about it. Whoever owns the policy calls the shots with the policy. Is someone else in control of that policy and or the beneficiary of that policy, and they want to control it? I'll give you a prime example. We often see life insurance in a situation where someone is divorced and they want to insure alimony or child support payments. And so they have to put on the judge from the divorce decree requires that there's life insurance in place. Well, if the person that is paying the alimony is also controlling the life insurance policy, who's to say that they don't necessarily change the ownership or the beneficiary? So it's things like that where you just go, well, duh, I have life insurance. It's really not that simple. And while we want to make sure that there is money, and the whole purpose of insurance is to take care of those that we love, we need to take care that those policies are set up correctly. Rick, you in one of your prior books, The Lies About Money, in one of the chapters, the later chapters, I love it. It was a great example of what we often see with some of this life insurance when you hear the pitch. And I'll give you the example. In my kitchen, in my house, I have a stainless steel fridge, and it looks great. And it's typically covered in, drawings from my kids and some whatever goes on the fridge. But the whole purpose of that fridge is to keep my food cold. And then maybe throw, a reminder of something I need to do later that week. What is often happening with life insurance is people are saying, you need life insurance, but oh, hey, wait, go and look. You can now use this to accumulate all this money, and you can often never have to pay tax on the withdrawals of this money. And the key distinction to remember on this is life insurance was designed to do one thing. just like the fridge. It was to keep your food cold. Life insurance is to provide some income to your family in the event that you lost your life. And if someone tries to say on this fridge, but look at all these different reasons you can use it. If you really shine it up, the stainless steel can become a mirror. That's not the intention of it. And in fact, it's maybe a little bit of a stretch. It is designed to replace your income in the event of an untimely death. And in the event that you have some of those policies that was designed more to be something like, perhaps a mirror on your fridge instead of this contraption to keep your food cold, that's where you really need to look into what's going on with your policy. If you don't have a fee-based financial advisor that is working on your best interest, feel free to give us a call. We do this all the time. We are more than happy to help, and we can take a look at what's going on with your policy and give you some options in terms of how to set it up correctly. Or if it is correct, to just give you a second opinion, pat you on the back, say it's looking great. Keep on going, doing what you're doing.
So that refrigerator analogy is really terrific. I'm a pretty good writer, huh? So that's Todd Hillstead, the Executive Director of Financial Planning at Edelman Financial Engines. And Todd, I'm really glad you invited folks to reach out to you and your colleagues. If somebody wanted to do that, how do they reach you?
There's two great ways to reach out to us. One is pick up the phone. It's 833-752-6333. Again, that's 833-752-6333. Another great resource to use to reach out to us is planefe.com/TAYF. Again, that one's planefe.com/TAYF.
That's Todd Hillstead of Edelman Financial Engines. Todd, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Always great to be with you, Rick.
You know how challenging it's been to manage your investments successfully this year. You've heard Rick Edelman caution you just about every week that, given today's combination of high market volatility and stubbornly high inflation, the investments that worked in the past might not be the ones to help you achieve your goals today. This is especially true if you need to generate current income from your investments. But where can you turn if your traditional approach isn't working anymore? At Global X ETFs, we can help. Our ETFs offer you investments that you might not have considered before. Asset classes with income-producing potential, including MLPs from the energy sector, real estate investment trusts, preferreds, and dividend-paying stocks. We've been providing our investors with income-oriented investments for more than a decade. Explore our full lineup of ETFs and get our research and insights and more all at globalxetfs.com. Or ask your financial advisor about Global X ETFs. globalxetfs.com.
Meet Schwab Intelligent Income, a simple, modern way to pay yourself from your portfolio. Overcome the complexity of income needs in retirement with automated tax-smart withdrawals that you can start, stop, or adjust at any time without penalty. Plus ongoing monitoring, so you'll always know where you stand. And since lower fees means more money for you to invest, you pay no advisory fee. Available with Schwab Intelligent Portfolios. Visit schwab.com/intelligent income, a modern approach to wealth management.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman, sponsored by Choice. Choice is changing the way Americans save for retirement by making it possible to invest in Bitcoin, crypto, and other alternative assets inside your IRA. That's right. Whether you open a deductible or a Roth IRA with Choice, you can invest in Bitcoin and 22 other digital assets in your retirement account. You can also buy stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, gold, real estate, and more, all in a single retirement account. There's no hidden fees or account minimums, just more control over your retirement savings. And Choice makes it ridiculously easy to combine all of your old retirement accounts with a rollover concierge service. So if you've switched jobs in the last few years and have been putting off rolling over your old 401k, make sure you check out Choice. Head on over to retirewithchoice.com/Rick. That's retirewithchoice.com/Rick.
listening to The Truth About Your Future. You know, I've been in the financial services industry for, well, more years than I like to count, pushing 40 years now. I first got licensed as a financial advisor back in the mid-1980s. I had been writing in the financial trade press prior to that, but I became a financial advisor in the 1980s, and the very first mutual fund company that I recommended that my clients invest in were mutual funds from Franklin Templeton. Franklin Templeton is one of the oldest mutual fund companies in the nation, 75 years old now, I believe. They're one of the largest mutual fund companies and money management firms in the nation, $1.7 trillion in assets. And so I am really happy that Franklin Templeton is one of the sponsors of DAC-FP. You have heard me talk about DAC-FP in the past here on the program. DAC-FP is the Digital Assets Council of Financial Professionals. DAC-FP is an organization I founded about 5 years ago to teach the financial community, financial advisors and their firms, about blockchain, Bitcoin, digital assets and such. And I'm really excited that Franklin Templeton is one of my sponsors. And I'm even more excited that right now I have the wonderful opportunity to have you meet Jenny Johnson. Jenny is the president and CEO of Franklin Templeton. She's been with the company more than 30 years. And she's been a key driver in the company's transformation to becoming what is now one of the largest and most respected investment management firms in the world. Jenny Johnson of Franklin Templeton, so good to have you on the show here with us today.
It's great to be here, Rick. Thanks for having me.
You know, you talk to most advisors, Jenny, and you know this. They know the Franklin Templeton name. Everybody does. Well known for managing very traditional asset classes, stocks and bonds, and investing internationally. The Templeton funds are super well known for that. And as I mentioned, I first started putting client assets back in Franklin Templeton funds back in the 1980s. But and in fact, I remember way back when Franklin Templeton was a leader in municipal bond investing and still is today. But as CEO, you've really focused on innovation and you're like reimagining the entire company, focusing on what's possible. I think people are surprised to hear how Franklin Templeton has gotten engaged, not just with stocks and bonds and municipal bonds these days, but now Franklin Templeton has gotten engaged with digital assets.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, Rick, you don't make it for 75 years if you haven't been able to innovate along the way, right? And so I actually do think it's part of our DNA as a firm. I think as you know, there's some things that have just never changed in what we do as, you know, an asset manager or financial advisors, and that is try to deliver for our clients really the most important help them achieve the most important financial goals of their lives. And so that part hasn't changed. I think what's changed is the opportunities from an investment standpoint, and technology has changed the way in which we deliver some of those capabilities. And I look at digital assets, and I think it's probably, you know, just of the things ahead of us from a technology standpoint, probably one of the things that will impact the way in which we deliver those kind of goals to our clients. And so I think for Franklin Templeton, it's just really important that we stand at the forefront of it.
So give me an illustration of what you mean by that. How is it that this new innovation of crypto, blockchain, digital assets, how is that going to transform itself into changing how we invest?
So first of all, I always like to say, look, that Bitcoin, I think, is the greatest distraction from the greatest disruption that is happening to financial services. And so I'm going to put the Bitcoin, is it, you know, this kind of ungovernment sponsored currency aside. And I think there are arguments positive and negative on that. But put that aside, I think what remains is in three big buckets. So the first is just efficiencies and cost savings. We're going to be able to deliver at a much more cost-effective, level of capabilities because of blockchain making us more efficient at what we do, and even customizing those things better. The second is, I think, access. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, I always say, my grandfather got into the mutual fund business because the average person couldn't access the equity markets, and the equity markets were where you were getting excess returns. Well, nowadays, the private markets, because companies are waiting so much longer to go public, that the average investor is not actually capturing that private market capability. And I think blockchain and its ability to fractionalize ownership and to reduce the transaction costs of transferring ownership is going to unlock a bunch of kind of what today have been really honestly only available for the ultra high net worth. And then finally, I actually think it's really exciting, this concept of unlocking value and creating new business capabilities. So if you think about the internet, what did the internet bring us? It brought us things like Uber and Airbnb, where you had this asset, a home or a car, that you could now actually unlock the value of it and use it for part of your business case. Well, there are some really interesting things being created that are, I think Web 3.0 is just going to take that to a whole other level that I think is pretty fascinating.
A lot of folks are not familiar with Web 3.0. You're talking about the metaverse, really. You're talking about NFT adoption in the marketplace. Elaborate on all that for us.
Okay, so again, let's take this concept of kind of the Uber and the Airbnb unlocking the value of your car and your home to be able to create additional revenue streams. Well, because of tokenization, so I maybe the easiest way to think of Web 1.0 was, I like to say it was kind of the read it. It was like a billboard. When you first we were talking about the internet, companies were thinking about their website as just, all right, I'll just put a bunch of information and leave it up there. Web 2.0 became, transactions. It became a communication channel. If you wanted to see your assets at Franklin Templeton, or you wanted to make transactions at Franklin Templeton, we enabled that. That was kind of Web 2.0. I like to think of Web 3.0 as own it. You can actually participate in some of that ownership. So a couple of examples, there's a company that wants to be the fastest streaming service out there. So if you're watching on their content on your device, you're agreeing to let them cache content on your device, so that if the person next to me wants to watch content, it only has to jump from my device to their device. So suddenly and they pay me in their cryptocurrency for the fact that they get to use my device as part of the infrastructure. So now I'm a client, right? Because I'm a user of it. I'm actually kind of an owner, because as their economic value increases, my economic value increases, and I'm actually part of the infrastructure. They don't need to go buy as many computers out there because they've figured out how to unlock their clients' computers. So that's one example. Another company, and I have no interest in these, is a company called Helium, where you can actually turn over kind of your router capacity. They're trying to build a network of sort of internet access. And so rather than building all the hardware, you can turn over some portion of your excess capacity and get paid to use that. So that builds a network for them. So it's that network effect that makes you as a client also really kind of an owner and contributing to part of that company. And that's only enabled because I think of the blockchain technology.
And you mentioned that you wanted to set Bitcoin aside, but Bitcoin and blockchain are kind of connected at the hip, and not just Bitcoin, but all digital assets, Ethereum, and there are 20,000 of these coins and tokens out there. They're all kind of connected to the blockchain. How can you really separate and segregate? Talk about how your focus at Franklin Templeton is really about the tech and the innovations it's bringing, and not so much about the speculation as to what Bitcoin will be worth in the future.
Yeah, and again, I think it comes down, again, they're using the same sort of technology and applying it in different ways. And so I actually think that one of the ways we'll know that the digital asset market's maturing when things like Ethereum and Bitcoin don't trade lockstep, right? That right now it's a risk on, risk off, but it's a lack of understanding about the difference. And so, the choice of the application on Bitcoin is really, I want to create a currency that's independent of governments. Whereas Ethereum, I like to say Ethereum is sort of like when Apple came out with the iPhone, and we first looked at the iPhone and we said, hey, that's pretty cool. I've got I got my phone, I've got music, I've got a GPS, I got a flashlight. This is really great. But what Apple understood and what Steve Jobs understood was he was providing a platform to unlock the creativity of individual programmers who came up with all these ideas that he never thought of himself, that he'd be able to do, or that Apple would be able to do. So, Ethereum or Solana or Cardano, all these layer one platforms are really kind of platforms to create, like the iPhone, where entrepreneurs can come in and build businesses. And, many of them kind of replicate traditional type businesses. But as I said, in both of those examples, they are able to kind of pay the clients for helping them build the network.
So it sounds like it's kind of hard to get excited about one without getting somewhat excited about the other, because they're all kind of in a broad spectrum. But the real focus here is on the fundamental technological innovation and how it's going to allow us to do things we otherwise haven't been able to do, or we couldn't do as quickly or as cheaply or as safely or with a profit opportunity. And that's what I think has you so excited at Franklin Templeton. So give me a couple of examples if you can, Jenny. And if you just joined us, we're talking with Jenny Johnson, the president and CEO of Franklin Templeton, one of the largest mutual fund and ETF providers in the world. Talk about something tangible, practical of an investment opportunity, or an investment opportunity you're inventing or going to be bringing to marketplace that will give investors an opportunity to benefit, capitalize on these technological innovations.
So if you think about just taking it first, starting pretty traditional, and then we can go into a little more esoteric. But from a traditional standpoint, imagine today that you own an iconic building like the Empire State Building, let's say, and now you want to go sell it. You are able to sell it to 1 million people because now you can tokenize that ownership. So if you were to try to do that today, the cost of maintaining everybody's title ownership to 1 million, 1 millionth of the Empire State Building would almost be overwhelming. But now, because you have the smart contract that can embed the title of ownership in that smart contract, I can fractionalize ownership of real assets at a much greater level. So now let's say I have my 1 millionth and I want to sell it to you. The rents are getting paid, right? So that comes in through my smart contract, but I can sell it to you without having to go to all these third parties, title companies and others, lawyers who are going to get paid to prove that it's legit, because I've been able to build that into the token itself. So if I can reduce the friction in transferring ownership, I can fractionalize more ownership. But I think what gets even more exciting is the social component. So there's a Four Seasons that has some years ago, and it's a little clunky. I think the structures are going to get better over time, but you can own a piece of this Four Seasons, and when you check in, they kind of recognize you as an owner, and so you can get a room upgrade. And meanwhile, you still get your let's say it's millionth ownership, so you're getting your payments as an owner of that, just like a stock dividend. But now I've got a loyalty program. You can see how with sports teams, you could sell off a piece of ownership on a sports team and, say, well, your value for ownership is that when the, better seats come up for season tickets, you get a priority. Maybe after the game, you get a special, coach's review. So it's that social component that's actually getting tied to this ownership that honestly is not that different from being an equity owner with a traditional stock, but it's just way more efficient.
So we're doing two things here, it sounds like. On the one hand, we're tying customers and owners, you're becoming one and the same. And we're creating access to ordinary investors who aren't particularly wealthy. They'll now have access to investment opportunities they've never had before. I mean, the only people right now who can afford to buy the Empire State Building are incredibly wealthy institutions or individuals, billionaires or pension funds. So, we're talking multi-billion-dollar pieces of real estate. I'd love to buy the Empire State Building, but I can't write that check. But if I can buy 1 millionth of it for $10, well, now I can participate. And it also becomes liquid and easily available, just like my stocks and bonds are. So this creates new asset classes, new investment opportunities, all of it affordable. Instead of having 15 or 20 asset classes, we're going to have 15 or 20,000 of them, creating true diversification.
Well, and a couple other examples. I mean, you already see. I think it was the NBA that in one quarter raised like $500 million in revenue by selling little NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which are essentially video clips. So I get to own maybe this iconic video of a great dunk being made by LeBron James or something. So that's a new asset class. I mean, in some ways, it's sort of like owning an old baseball card, right? But wow, now it's really, really engaging and interesting. You're seeing artists. So think about the fraud that happens in the art world. So I know of companies that are helping artists tie an NFT to their physical art. So it does a couple of things. One is I, as the artist today, if I paint a painting and I go sell it, I might capture a third of the initial economics. But if I tie an NFT to that, now when somebody buys it from me, good news is they know they have a legitimate original piece of art. When I then want to sell it to you, you only want to buy this if you get the NFT because you want to know that it's authentic. Oh, and by the way, in the smart contract, the artist can get paid a piece of that ongoing sale. So now that artist for the future can continue to capture some of the economic value on that art, which gets pretty exciting. And then from that social component, that artist can say, hey, I want to do a Zoom cocktail with everybody who happens to own my personal painting. So that's a value you get of building that kind of community.
So how do you anticipate Franklin Templeton being able to turn all of this into the marketplace? What are the products, investment opportunities you're going to make available to your investors?
Well, so we already have a couple of things. We have a SEC approved blockchain money market fund, which we think can be kind of interesting. If you think about owning a digital token where you're getting interest, as rates go up, you'll actually, Rick, get paid on your money market fund someday, we think. So you can hold it there and then trade digital assets, always knowing that you can go into something that's tied and regulated, tied to the dollar. So that's one. But we built a transfer agency system on that, so you can take any of our traditional funds ultimately and tokenize them. And we think that will drive down the cost of delivering those types of things. We do have products that are available to investors where we do, just like we do on stocks and bonds and do the detailed research, where we are researching the companies and you can buy our portfolio. So we'll deliver in a separately managed account a portfolio of different coins that we've gone through, like Ethereum. We might have one that's themed around the platforms. We might have one that's themed, we have one that's themed around the platforms. We have one that's themed around gaming. So we have different themes to provide professional management and research and deliver to these types of capabilities in really kind of this new world through financial advisors.
This is just an inkling of the kind of innovation that is coming from some of the most advanced thinking in the financial services world. If you were wondering, all these crypto companies are brand new startups, who knows where they're situated, who are the people behind them, how much money have they got to support themselves? What's the rest of mainstream Wall Street doing? Well, Jenny Johnson is giving you a pretty good indication of what the leadership is doing at some of the forward-thinking firms in the financial services sector. You're going to be hearing a lot more from Franklin Templeton as they bring more and more of these investment opportunities to market. I'll be sharing the news with you as well right here on The Truth About Your Future, so you can stay up to date on all of this. But before we go, Jenny, I can't let you go without changing the conversation entirely. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I've got you on the phone and on video right now. You're one of the most successful executives in the financial services industry and in the Fortune 500. And you're a bit of a rarity, sad to say, because you're a woman. Talk about what it's been like over the past 30 years in the financial services industry, being female in this industry, and where do you think we are today regarding gender equality in the industry and what you see in the future about all this?
I was always lucky, having worked for my father for many years at Franklin Templeton, and we were the first firm to hire a female general counsel. My mother, after having 7 children, went back to college and then ultimately graduated from Stanford Medical School. And you couldn't do that if you didn't have a spouse that was incredibly supportive and shared in some of the work and effort. So I always grew up in a household where there was just a view that men and women, you could do whatever you wanted to do. I think as an industry, we're recognizing the great opportunity that having a diverse group of investors, how important that is. And I like to share the example of we have a venture capital fund, our Stratus fund, where it's run by women and it's focused on kind of female entrepreneurs. And today, less than 2% of VC money goes to women. So, 50% of the population has less than 2% of the ideas. And I think that the real growth opportunity here, when you start to get more women investors, only 12% of female VCs, of VCs are female. So women will say, the reason I think I didn't get funded by this venture capital firm was they didn't understand my business case. And so the 2 examples I like to share is one, we invested in a company called Rent the Runway. And I laugh, Rick, because, I'm certain that when you and your wife head off to some gala or some event, you're just hoping that your 20-year-old tuxedo is still fitting well. Whereas your wife is saying, I've worn all these dresses over the last 5 years, I can't wear it again. I mean, there's real pressure on women. And so, I think about somebody coming in and pitching the Rent the Runway. Women can rent dresses for these events, talking to a bunch of guys that have been, in their 20-year-old tuxedo, and you might miss that opportunity. And so I think we're starting to recognize, because female entrepreneurs tend to have twice the returns when you aggregate what they've done versus the average venture fund, which tells me that the ideas, the ones that finally get through, are phenomenal, but we're probably missing a bunch of them. So I'm actually really optimistic that the industry has really woken up to the growth opportunity of having real diversity on investment teams. And then I think the other thing that we haven't done as well as an industry, and I was reminded of this when I asked my children, asked my daughters whether or not any of them would join me in this business. And one of them said to me, Mom, I want to do something that helps people.
No.
Are you kidding me? This is a business that helps people. What are you saying? And I realized it's because we don't talk about it in such a way about helping people achieve the goals that are most important. You talk to somebody who is afraid they're going to lose their home when they retire. Believe me, that's fear. Or somebody who has a special needs child who wants to ensure that they've saved enough to take care of that child once they're gone. These are real, personal, and important. And, as an industry, we have to remind people that that's why we come in every day. And I think in that, we will attract more women to this business.
Well, I hope you're absolutely right about that. I am optimistic myself, and we have a lot more work to do. But with folks like you at the forefront, I have every reason to be optimistic. That's Jenny Johnson, who is the president and CEO of Franklin Templeton, here on The Truth About Your Future. Jenny, thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Rick. It's been great.
Stay with us for more here on The Truth About Your Future.
What do all the greatest innovations have in common? Agents of innovation. Ordinary people who shape the future by putting their money behind the right ideas. Invesco QQQ is a fund that allows you access to innovators of the NASDAQ 100. So you don't have to be an inventor to help create what's next to come. Be an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ. Learn more at Invesco.com/QQQ. There are risks when investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETFs risks are similar to those of stocks. Investments in the tech sector are subject to greater risk and more volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 Index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ. You can't invest directly into an index. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in the prospectus at Invesco.com. Invesco Distributors, Inc.
Recession, inflation, rising interest rates. Wondering what today's economic challenges mean for you? Join Edelman Financial Engines on Tuesday, September 20th at 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern for our brand new virtual event, The Economic Storm of 2022 and Your Wealth, a roundtable discussion hosted by best-selling author Gene Shatsky and featuring wealth planners from Edelman Financial Engines. You can register now at planefe.com. You'll get timely insights into today's market situation and learn steps to consider now. Are you making the right financial moves? What could you be doing differently? Don't miss this important virtual event. Join Edelman Financial Engines for The Economic Storm of 2022 and Your Wealth, hosted by Gene Shatsky on Tuesday, September 20th at 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern. There's no cost to attend and no obligation. Register now at planefe.com. That's planefe.com. Edelman Financial Engines, from here forward.
You know how challenging it's been to manage your investments successfully this year. You've heard Rick Edelman caution you just about every week that, given today's combination of high market volatility and stubbornly high inflation, the investments that worked in the past might not be the ones to help you achieve your goals today. This is especially true if you need to generate current income from your investments. But where can you turn if your traditional approach isn't working anymore? At Global X ETFs, we can help. Our ETFs offer you investments that you might not have considered before. Asset classes with income-producing potential, including MLPs from the energy sector, real estate investment trusts, preferreds, and dividend-paying stocks. We've been providing our investors with income-oriented investments for more than a decade. Explore our full lineup of ETFs and get our research and insights and more, all at globalxetfs.com. Or ask your financial advisor about Global X ETFs. globalxetfs.com.
Welcome back to The Truth About Your Future. You know, there are two particular products that are really hot and popular in today's rising rate environment and market declines and volatility and all that kind of good stuff. One of them is annuities. You're really interested in annuities. Annuity sales have been skyrocketing this year because people are looking for two things. One, a guarantee that they won't lose money. And number two, a good interest rate, better than what they can get in a bank account. Well, watch out. You need to be careful because you not always are getting what you think you're getting. Equitable life insurance has just been nailed with a $50 million fine by the SEC. The SEC says Equitable Life has been making misleading statements about the fees that it charges for its variable annuity since 2016. The SEC says Equitable failed to list all the fees that investors pay on the quarterly statement. This has affected 1.4 million investors, mostly school teachers, saving for retirement. The SEC says that Equitable sent statements every quarter to the school teachers, and those statements showed the fees as zero. More often than not, the SEC says. In fact, the annuity had a separate account fee of up to 1.5%, plus portfolio operating fees of up to 2.25%, plus other fees, termination fees, transfer fees, loan origination fees. So instead of saying the truth, that these school teachers are paying 3 or 4% to own this annuity, they were being told every quarter, oh, the fees are zero. Flat out lying, says the SEC. And the other really popular investment these days are I bonds, I for inflation. These are government guaranteed bonds with an interest rate tied to the inflation rate. While we know how high inflation has gone so far this year, I bonds are currently yielding 9.6% in interest. Wow. You go try to find a bank CD paying 9.6%. These things are paying 3 times more than you can get anywhere in any kind of equivalent guaranteed safe return. There's a problem with I bonds, however. You're only allowed to buy up to $10,000 of them a year. You can do $15,000 if you use your tax refund. So the good news is these are government guaranteed. The better news is it's 9.6%. But if you're rich, well, So what? If you've got millions of dollars and you can only do 10 grand a year, that's not really very good. Now, you could do 10 grand a year. You could have your spouse do 10 grand a year. You got 3 kids, they could each do 10 grand a year. So great. The 5 of you can do $50,000 a year in I-bond purchases. But still, if you've got millions of dollars to invest, 50 grand, that's not moving the needle in terms of your asset allocation. So along comes this outfit. I'm not going to mention their name because I don't want to give them the publicity. They are now sending emails around the country offering to create and manage multiple corporate entities for you so that they can each get their own tax ID number and they can each go buy I-bonds up to 10 grand apiece. They say their service includes providing multiple registered U.S. entities, setting up the account at the Treasury Department through Treasury Direct Online for each of those entities, and doing batch executions of bond purchases across all of these multiple accounts on Treasury Direct. This outfit, I don't know if what they're doing is legal, but it certainly shouldn't be. I mean, even if it is legal, I would put it in the category of just because you have the right to do it, doesn't mean it's right to do it. This Treasury rule was designed to provide the ability for low income, low asset consumers to earn a little bit of a better return than they can readily get in their bank. It wasn't designed to help rich people get richer by exploiting this loophole. And although this firm seems to be on the legal side of things, I would argue they're certainly on the unethical side. I'm Rick Edelman. These days, we have to watch our back, because that's the truth about our future. Time now for everybody's favorite segment of the program, a visit by my wife, Jean Edelman. Jean, a student of the healing arts, Reiki, traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, and of course, macrobiotic and plant-based cooking. Here's Jean.
Great to be with you this week. The word of the week is preparation. Now, I consider myself an odd duck because I really like to be prepared for my day. If I'm going out, I like to make sure I've got some food, some water, some snacks. If there's details of the day that I've gone through and the boxes are checked, personally, it's very comforting and calming to me. I think life could be so much easier if we take the time to prepare. Being prepared can give us the space, the mental space, and the ability to kind of breathe and relax. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity to be prepared for the unexpected. Last year, there was a story of outside the Washington, D.C. area where there was an accident and people were stuck on the road for hours. They couldn't get off. They were running out of gas. Their cell phones were dead. They didn't have any food or water. It was crazy. I feel that we're so focused on getting through our day that we're really not thinking of the unexpected. We don't think of the what ifs. What if we're delayed? There's always the possibility of an accident somewhere. Depending on the time of year and where we are, the weather could change quickly. Do we have our meds? Do we have any emergency contacts that we need to have on us? Is our phone charged? Do we have a charger? Is our car full of gas? It's actually like playing chess. We're trying to think of these pieces a couple moves ahead. But I think if we could have the awareness of being prepared for the unexpected, that could be very helpful. So that's my action item for the week. Think about what could go sideways in our day. School's back in session, the kids might need something. It's just it's just thinking a little bit more out of the box and preparing for the what ifs and the unexpected. So my word of the week is just prep. The P is for pioneer, the first to accomplish something, to be an innovator. It's not always comfortable to be the first, but in moments of chaos, we will be glad that we were a few steps ahead of the crowd. So be that pioneer in your day. The R is for reasonable and logical. This is not always the case in real life. When our world is spinning out of control, this is when we need our calm and we need our mind thinking and making good decisions. And so being reasonable in a time of chaos. The E is for endure. We can endure a lot, and we do endure a lot, but being ready can make it a whole lot easier. And then the P is for patience. Composure. When the world is turned upside down, when our day is spinning, when events happen that we were not prepared for, this is when we need composure. We need to think clearly, and it could be life-saving. So prepare. Prepare. Just think about our day and being prepared. Have a great week, everyone.
I know you can't get enough of Gene. Well, you can go to thetruthayf.com for more of Gene's Words of the Week.
Did you know Schwab offers a satisfaction guarantee? If for any reason you're not completely satisfied, Schwab will refund your fee or commission and work with you to make things right. You won't find that kind of promise everywhere, but you will find it at Schwab. It's just another way that they put clients' interest at the heart of everything they do. Learn what's included and how it works at schwab.com/satisfaction. That's schwab.com/satisfaction.
Want to invest in digital assets but find it all a bit complicated? There's actually a very easy way that you can invest in this new asset class. Simply choose the Bitwise 10 Crypto Index Fund, symbol BITW. It's the first and still the biggest crypto index fund. It owns the 10 largest digital assets and rebalances monthly, so you don't have to decide what to buy or when to rebalance. Bitwise does it all for you. At Bitwise, we want digital assets to be available to everyone, and that's why we work closely with individual investors like you, as well as financial advisors and institutions. At Bitwise, crypto is all we do. If you believe digital assets should be part of a diversified portfolio, take a look at the Bitwise Crypto 10 Index Fund, symbol BITW, available everywhere you get your investments. There are major risks to consider, including the loss of your entire investment. Before investing in crypto funds, visit bitwiseinvestments.com to learn about the risks with these investments.
Well, that's all the time we've got on The Truth About Your Future this weekend. Remember, sign up for my new master classes. It's online, Financial Planning in the Age of Longevity. In my new master class, you'll discover the truth about your future, starting with the fact that if you're alive in 2030, you'll probably be alive to age 100 and beyond. Will your money last as long as you do? That's what my new master class teaches you at thetruthayf.com. That's thetruthayf.com. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
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 I'm sorry, what? What part didn't you understand? The buh or the bye? Bye-bye.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman has been brought to you by Bitwise, the world's largest crypto index fund manager. As crypto grows, Bitwise believes everyone should have a simple and familiar way to access it. Bitwise makes crypto clear. BitwiseInvestments.com. And by Global X ETFs. For more than a decade, Global X ETFs has been dedicated to providing investors with unexplored and intelligent solutions. Learn more at globalxetfs.com. And by Invesco QQQ, a fund that allows you to access the innovators of the NASDAQ 100. Invesco.com/QQQ. Stay tuned for Everyday Wealth with Soledad O'Brien and Gene Chatsky from Edelman Financial Engines. Everydaywealth.com/radio. EFE and The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman are unaffiliated entities.
Get the truth about your future every weekend with Rick Edelman. It's thetruthayf.com.